Let me know where y'all at. Yes. Speak to me, brother. I need some encouragement. Hey, Mogi, how are you? Hope you are doing well. Okay. I just got to post one comment, do my homework here, and then hold up. All right. I think I messed up that pen. But anyway, um, what's up, y'all? I hope you are doing great. I'm excited that we can have this conversation. As you know, leading up to the release of my new book, The Truth About Men, What Men and Women Need to Know, I've been having these truth talks. And for those of you that tuned in last week, we had my brother from another, Trey Byers. We proved to the world that we are two different people. We finally had to let everybody know because everywhere we go, they ask us, are we the same people? So last week, we had a dynamic conversation. If you get a chance, I believe it's up on my YouTube, DeVon Franklin Official. You can check out that conversation. I also had a conversation before that with my brother, Pastor Chad Johnson, and it was dynamic. And so I've been having these conversations because I think it's time for us not only to tell the truth, but I think we're at a place where enough is enough. I wrote this new book, because first of all, I just see so much going on in the world that if we don't, as men, do our work and we don't submit to the process of becoming better, we're going to continue to see so much things happening in our culture. And so I didn't want to write a book that was like, okay, women, here's what you need to do to get a man. I didn't want to do that. That wasn't what was in my heart. Really, what I wanted to do was to say, okay, as men, here's how we can become better. And again, I'm not pointing the finger. This is me, how we can become better. And along the way, women, there's a lot of information that you need to know. And if you don't know it, it could be a liability to your dealings with men. So this is the reason why I wrote The Truth About Men, What Men and Women Need to Know. And I feel compelled to do these truth talks. And trust me, we're going to have some awesome guests that are coming. But tonight, I had to get on so we can unpack this question: why do men cheat? And what can be done about it? I mean, literally, it feels like from as far back as I can remember, all the way up until this moment, there is this conversation. Why do men cheat? And listen, I don't know Cardi B or Offset personally, so I would never even use them or their business at all. But what is going on with them has produced the conversation, about cheating. And so I felt like, let's get on, let's talk about it, because I think there are a lot of reasons why it happens. I think there are a lot of things that can be done to work against it. And I also want to, have a conversation with those that may even be on the verge of doing it or are doing it now. And maybe you'll hear something in this conversation. You'll hear some truth that will compel you to think differently. One of the things I want to start with just personally, that this is an issue that is close to my heart. Many of you, when you read the book, you're going to see I talk about something I've never talked about personally. I've never mentioned what I'm going to say publicly. I write it in the book, which is many of you who know me and you've been following me, my father died of a heart attack when he was 36 years old, when I was 9 years old. And years after his death, I was at one of my family members' houses, one of my cousins' houses, and I saw a picture of my father and my mother and another female family member sitting on a bed. And I'll never forget, I looked at that picture, and my father and my mother, my father and that female family member were smiling. My mother looked distraught. She was upset. And then I began to ask someone, I said, why is my mom so upset in this picture? And I come to find out that my dad cheated on my mother with another woman in our family. Listen, if you've been there, if this is your story too, go ahead and let me know. It blew me away when I found this out, because one, I was like, okay, how is it possible that my dad, I know my dad loves my mother, and I know my mother loves my dad. How is it possible that he could have cheated on her, let alone with another woman in the family? It blew me away. And literally, I began to ask the women. I see you, Brianna. I see you. A lot of you, you've had this experience. You've had this experience. I see you, MP DeVille. Your father died at 36 too. It blew me away. So I began to ask the question: can men be faithful? I remember asking my all my family, female family members at the time, all the women in my family, can men be faithful? Is it possible? Or are we just, is it just impossible, not gonna happen? And the response that I got growing up was that 99% of all men cheat. And I said, 99% of all men cheat. Now, this was as a kid growing up. I said, nah, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I said, wait a minute. Why do 99% of all men cheat? And the more I began to ask the question, the more, even as a teenager, I became obsessed almost and compelled. How do I become the 1%? I don't want to wreak havoc on the life of my wife. I don't want to be one of those men that has that as part of their testimony. And so as a kid, I became very, very, teenager, became very focused on this. What I didn't realize as I got older and came into manhood and began to, deal with my own issues, and what I didn't realize is that this issue of infidelity and this issue of men cheating is much more difficult than it seems from the outside. And so I'm not going to give you any excuses for why it happens or why it should be okay, but I am going to unpack a little bit of what leads up to it. And I'm also going to talk about what can be done. But first, before we do that, we have to do a level set of what is cheating. Okay. Sometimes people think, oh, well, I didn't sleep with that person, so it's not cheating. Okay. I didn't kiss that person, so it's not cheating. Here's what I know. I believe cheating is when you are in a committed relationship or a marriage and you have an interaction that outside of that committed relationship or a marriage with another person whom your intention is not just friendship. It may be a conversation, it may be a flirtation, it may be a glimpse, it may be a text, it may be a tweet. When your intention is not aligned with honoring the commitment you're in, I argue this would qualify as cheating. You don't have to just be in the bed with someone and that be deemed cheating. Cheating can take the place of something physical, absolutely. It can also take the place of something emotional. Many times there is a lot of emotional cheating out there. And what that looks like is we allow somebody else who should not be fulfilling one of our emotional needs fulfill our needs. So it's so important to do a level set of cheating. And I'm going to come back to this idea of emotional cheating and how sometimes we leave ourselves open and vulnerable to others outside of our relationship or marriage to meet our needs, and how that can be a liability that can lead to cheating. So I really want us to have that level set of this is what cheating is. So if you're listening to me and you are in this situation, just because you have not kissed the person or haven't gone to bed with that person, that doesn't mean that you may not be in a situation that could qualify as cheating. So this is so important. So now that we have that level set, here is the question that we're trying to unpack tonight. Why can't men be faithful? Or can we? And if we can, what is the process? I want you all to go ahead in the comments, ask your questions. We will do our best. I'll do my best to answer a few of them. If you're also on Facebook Live, go ahead and ask your questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer a few of them. So here's what I fundamentally believe, that one of the reasons why we as men, and I say we, the collective we, I have not cheated on my wife. I don't have any intention of cheating on my wife, but here's what I know. And I write this in the book. If I stand before you as, oh, I'm DeVon Franklin, I'm above cheating. Oh, that would never happen to me. If I stand before you like that, that right there, that arrogance, that pride is going to make me susceptible to fall to the very thing I'm trying to present to you that I won't do. So I'm not trying to present an image to you. I've been married for 6 years. We're going on our seventh year. I'm very, very happy. But what I can tell you is this question and this choice to stay committed and work on the commitment is more difficult than most people realize, not because there's anything wrong with the commitment or the marriage. It's what's going on inside of us as men. So I want you to know that I'm not talking to you, as DeVon, the people that you all see, preacher, whatever, however you want to call me, author, Megan, son, whatever. I'm coming to you as DeVon the man. I'm coming to you as DeVon, your brother, saying, yo, let me tell you what's really going on so that we can hopefully get to a point where we can identify what we can do about this. Because I believe that infidelity and I believe that cheating is tearing us apart. And one of the other motivating factors that made me not only want to take on this topic tonight, but also to talk about it in the book, my new book, The Truth About Men. So many women, since Megan and I wrote The Wait, have come to me, from all around the world. We're waiting. We can't find the right man. Or when are the men going to step up? And then we're with a man and we tell them we're waiting, and then they leave us because they don't want to wait. What are we going to do? Why can't we find a man who is willing to honor our commitment to wait? And so there have been so many women that have come to me personally about this subject that I wanted to write this book, The Truth About Men, what men and women need to know, as a way and as a manual for us as men to become who we were created to be, and specifically get help around this issue of cheating and this issue of infidelity and becoming the men that we say we are, honoring our commitments, honoring our women, honoring our families. Is it easy? No. Can it be done? I believe it can. But these are the motivations that made me want to not only take on this topic tonight, but talk about it. So here's my theory of why men cheat. I believe that most men cheat because we are not taught growing up about the power and the value of commitment. As a matter of fact, most of us, when we grow up, we end up believing that as men, the more women we have, the better. Because we're taught manhood in a box. The box of manhood says the more women you have, the more acceptance you'll have. So what do most men do? Young men growing up, we try to get as many women as possible. And I was no exception to that. I was definitely a late bloomer when it came to dating. I didn't date till I was, a little bit later, like, 17, 18 years old, but it was definitely a situation where, once I started dating, I was, for without a doubt, thinking that the more I dated, the more of a man I would feel. So what began to happen is that the more women I would date, the more I would try to feel better about myself. But what I realized was it was not filling the hole in my soul. It wasn't making me feel better. It was actually making me feel worse, because here I am giving a piece of myself to all these different women who I don't mean any good for. I have no intention at the time for the women I was dating, but I was still dating them because we were taught, we were conditioned that the more you date, the better. So here I am falling into that trap. And I got to just give you a commercial break. I'm going to come right back to our regularly scheduled program. If there's anybody watching me right now on Instagram Live or Facebook Live, and you are buying into this idea, any man watching me, that you're buying into this idea that the more women you have, the better. I challenge you. If you are dating women right now that you don't mean any good, please bring it to an end tonight. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but if you are dating multiple women and you're manipulating them to some degree, you have no intention for their well-being, I need you right now to bring it to an end. They're not play toys. They're not objects. They are souls. They are hearts. They are daughters of God. And if we as men are not serious, either let them go or get serious. Please listen to me. Please. Because if somebody was doing what you may be doing to a woman, If somebody was doing that to your sister or your mother, would you stand for it? And if the answer is no, then don't do it to somebody else's sister or mother. Please listen to me. I don't know what man I'm talking to right now. And for the women that are listening to me, please hear me clearly on this commercial break. And then we're going to get right back into our regularly scheduled program. Please listen to me. If you are not clear where you stand with the man you are dating, do not assume that something is going on that isn't going on. Ask the question, where are we? What is your intention? Because what I don't want you to have is to be in a situation where you're being manipulated and you don't know it. Don't be afraid to get clarity on where you are, even if it means he ends up walking away. Because if he walks away, when you ask a question about what's going on, he was going to walk away anyway. I need you to know this. I need you to know this. Okay, so right back to our regularly scheduled program. So for those of you that are just tuning in, we're talking about why do men cheat and what can be done about it. So here's my belief. As we've been conditioned as men that more is better, what happens is we build no discipline in our dating life. Okay? We build no discipline in our dating life. So if it's the same, this example will give you a good equivalent. So if you are used to eating whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and then all of a sudden you're forced to eat one diet, if you have had no discipline in eating, it's going to be very, very hard to get discipline with that diet. Why? Because your appetite is expanded. And it takes time and practice and discipline in order to reorient your body and your appetite to that new diet. Same thing with dating. So as men, if we're used to dating and in some instances sleeping around with multiple women, when it comes down to committing to one, if we haven't been practicing that, that can be a challenge in and of itself. I hope you understand that analogy. I hope you get it. Because if there's no discipline in our dating life, it's very hard for there to be discipline in a relationship and then ultimately discipline in marriage. Okay, so what happens when we don't have discipline and we're dating? We're dating, we have all these multiple women. I'm talking about why men cheat for those of you that are just tuning in. What happens is, I believe that there's two things in us, love and lust. And the more we date and we think that it's all about, the more the better, the bigger the better, the more we do that and the more women we have, the more it feeds the lust in us. So what I believe is that one of the reasons why it's hard for men to commit is because that lust has been fed more than the love in a man. So let me go a step further and help you unpack one of the main tenets of the book, because this idea and this metaphor will help you understand where it is I'm going and what it is I'm trying to do. Is my reception bad? Are we okay over there? My reception good? Yeah? Okay, great. Somebody said my reception bad. Just making sure we good. I want y'all to be able to hear me and see me. It's too important to mess it up. So here's what I believe. And this is a metaphor for you to understand how love and lust operate in a man. So here's my theory and my thesis for the new book, The Truth About Men. I believe that men, each one of us, has love and lust in us. I believe lust, operates like an untrained dog. It wants what it wants when it wants it. It is selfish. It wants its needs met and it doesn't care about anybody else. That's what lust does. It makes us want what we want, however we want it, no matter what we have to do to get it. So I believe that lust in men operates like an untrained dog. So I call lust the dog. In men, we also have love of self, love of community, love of women, love of family, love of commitment. When we put love in control of lust, there's nothing a man can't do. So I call that when we master the dog. When we let the dog run our life, when we let lust run our decisions, we become what it makes us. We become selfish, we become callous, and we become focused on only our needs being met even at the expense of others. So why do men cheat on their wives, their girlfriends? Because I believe the dog is in control. Lust is in control. And when lust is in control, if we don't put ourselves in a process to practice how to rein that lust in, we're going to allow that lust to not only run our life, but eventually ruin our life. Men all over the world, from all eras and all stations in life, trust me, have had issues dealing with lust. But what happens is that there's no conversation about how to deal with it. What do you do when you start to feel an urge? What do you do when you start to feel horny? What do you do when you're trying to be committed, but you don't have a model in your own family that can show you how to do it? So we love to vilify why does it happen, right? But these are some of the reasons why I believe men end up cheating, because this dog, this lust, is running our life. Here's what I need you to know about this dog. Here's what I need you to know about lust. All men have it. We all got it. Me too. I too. I got it. Okay. Again, I'm not sitting up here standing before you, sitting before you, excuse me, talking before you. I'm not sitting here talking with you as if, I've already conquered this thing. And yes, women too, you have it. We all got lust, all of us, right? All of us. But I believe from the research that I've done that lust operates differently in men than it does in women. And the research says that women actually have an easier time dealing with lust than men do. That's for a variety of reasons. We'll save that for part 2 of this conversation. So one of the main questions we've been asking is why men cheat. Men cheat because we're in this tug of war between love and lust, between the dog and the master. If you've realized when you look at the dog training metaphor, every dog has a dog owner, but not every dog has a dog master. In order to master the dog, you have to put yourself in a process where you train that dog to do what you want it to do instead of it doing what it wants to do. So lust operates in a very similar way. So when men cheat, my theory, my thesis is that when we cheat, we're cheating because we are fulfilling the lust no matter the cost. And this is when we as men run into some serious, serious challenges. When we allow the feelings of lust to run and ruin our life, and we don't put ourselves in a process to say, wait, stop, hold the press, I need help. The other part that compounds why men cheat is because we don't talk. We are not conditioned to have conversations, to talk. We don't express what's going on. We don't let others know what we're really dealing with. I've gotten to the place where, I have people in my life that I can talk to, and I can say, yo, bro, man, let's talk. This dog is barking, okay? Yo, and here's what I need you to know. And this is a hard truth for every woman out there. Many times a man will cheat, and it has nothing to do with you at all. It has to do with what's going on in him. Nothing to do with you. That's a hard, hard truth. And that this is why, and again, I want to talk about how you can ultimately deal with this and what the steps are besides just focusing on the problem. But I need you to know this is very, very important, because if you're looking at yourself as a reason why the man has done it, I believe you're putting yourself in a circumstance, in a situation where you are taking on responsibility for something you did not do. At the end of the day, if a man chooses to cheat, it's not right, and it's his responsibility, and he has to be accountable for his actions. I don't want you to think that if you're with a man who has cheated on you, or you're with a man that may be cheating on you, that the fault of that man lies at your feet if you are a woman. That is just not true. And this is one of the reasons why I wrote my book, The Truth About Men, is because I'm so tired of us pointing the finger at women saying, here's what you need to do, and here's what you should have done differently. No, come on. As men, we got to do our work. We got to look in the mirror and say, even though I struggle, even though it's difficult, what do I have to do to get control? Because I want to be a man of integrity. I want to be a man of commitment. I want to be a man that doesn't say one thing and does something totally different. When these desires are so strong in us, we have to get around the right people and be honest about ourselves in order to move through. Here's what I know about this issue of cheating. It's never, never at the end of the day justified, because we all have to be held accountable and responsible for our actions. And this is why it's so important to master the dog, to get control, because this dog loves to operate in the shadows. This dog loves to present one image, and behind closed doors is doing something totally different. This is why more men struggle than you may realize. I'm going to give you another commercial break. We're going to come right back to our regularly scheduled program. If you are in a marriage or a relationship, your communication is critical. Sometimes the man that is in your life, this is for women, could be struggling and you see him every day. Internally, he could be thinking about, how do I deal with all these feelings? How do I deal with me having these desires that I don't want to have, but he doesn't have an outlet to talk about it. So what's going to happen? Anything we suppress, we empower. Anything we're in denial about, it will become stronger to destroy us. So if you're in a relationship or a marriage, don't just take yes for an answer. When you ask the question, how are you doing? Stop. Say, wait, baby, what's really going on with you? How are you? What are the things you're concerned about? What are the things you're worried about? Well, what's really going on in your spirit? What's really going on in your heart? Don't just say, hey, baby, you good? Oh, yeah, baby, I'm all right. Because so often, because we aren't always conditioned to talk or to ask questions, so often we end up suffering in silence. And for men, if this is you and I'm describing you, don't use the fact that just because we haven't been conditioned to talk as an excuse to go out and cheat. If you are feeling the urge to cheat, if there's somebody you're having an inappropriate conversation with, if there's somebody you've been DMing on the DL and nobody knows about it, don't allow yourself to go down this slope. Why? Because it is going to wreak havoc and damage in your life. If you love the woman you're with and you care about her well-being, put a stop to this right now. Put a stop to it. Please, please. Communication. Tell her what's going on. And here's the truth. Sometimes in a relationship, women, you got to be open to hearing what your man's got to say, even if you don't like it. Sometimes some of the hardest conversations that Megan and I have, but the best conversations are when we're honest with how we really feel and we're not trying to sugarcoat it for the other person. So important, if you are in a relationship, to not assume that your man is okay. And my brothers, if you aren't okay, talk about it. Speak about it. Don't suffer in silence. Please, I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but I feel impressed to say this. It's interesting because in scripture, now we're back to our regularly scheduled program. In scripture, I believe scripture talks about the dog too. When you talk about Paul talks, he says, the things I wish I could do, I cannot do. And the things I don't want to do, I do. I believe he's describing what I'm trying to describe as this dog, this lust in us that can operate like an untrained dog, and it has to be mastered. Very, very important. Every man has this in them. Is there a way to just get rid of it? No. We have to work on it every single day. We've got to work on it. Me managing my own lust, mastering my own dog, it is difficult work, but it is the best work that I do. Why? Because if I don't do my work, I could potentially cause the same hurt in Megan's eyes that my father caused in my mother's eyes. And I personally, I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to live. So what it requires me to do is to be honest. Now, I'm also going to say one other thing. You know, I thought, okay, hey, getting married, hey, it's gonna put the dog to sleep. I don't have to worry about thinking about other women. I don't have to worry about any of this. I got married, said I do. I'm in love. It's all good, wonderful. It only put the dog to sleep. It didn't eradicate it altogether. So as all of a sudden these thoughts started coming back even in marriage, and like, well, why do I have this thought about, I'm happy in my marriage, I love my wife, but why do I still have these thoughts? Why, what's going on? And so the more I began to realize, oh wow, I have this lust in me, I have this dog in me that's never going to go away. So as Paul said, that thorn in our side, when you look at the scripture, he said, I had a thorn in my side, and I asked God to take it away, and he wouldn't. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. So I believe the same idea is specifically relevant to what men deal with, that this thorn, this lust, is never going to go away. We have to learn how to manage it. This is why it's so important, even in our dating life, to start getting disciplined. A few weeks ago, I posted a meme that everybody was loving, saying, boys play, men commit. That true peace is found in committing to one instead of playing around with many. I believe that, because too often we think that when we get married, it's going to be the magic wand that's going to make us all of a sudden, monogamous. But if we haven't been practicing monogamy, if we've been promiscuous in dating, I'm trying to tell you, I do is not a magic wand. So this is why it's so important for us to do it. So why do men cheat? Men cheat because lust is in control. Men cheat because there has not been discipline used to lay a foundation for how to deal with lust. So I call that, again, the dog. The dog is running a man's life. So the question is, before I transition, there have been some questions, and I just want to make sure I get to them, and then I want to transition to what we can do about it. I'm mindful of keeping these truth talks short. So we're about a half an hour in, and I want to spend 10 more minutes and then talk about what it is that we can do in order to deal with this issue. Okay, so at KIY Shell 08 says this: can a man and a woman be just friends if they both are involved in a marriage with someone else? Okay, good question. If this is also your question, can a man and a woman be friends even if they're involved in a marriage or a relationship with someone else? This is at KIY Shell 08. If this is your question, go ahead and give me a high five or hit the heart button so I know. Here's what I believe. I believe that it is possible for a man and a woman to be friends outside of their marriage. However, and I have a big however, here are the things you have to be worried and concerned about. It is so important for us not to just think that every male, so in a marriage, you got to believe, if you're married, that not every female friendship is necessarily right for your marriage. And if you're a woman in marriage or a relationship, not every male friendship is right for your marriage or your relationship. Here's what you have to be careful of. If your needs are not being met in your marriage, that close friend you may have of the opposite sex can ultimately lead you to emotional cheating, because I do believe that you should not discuss anything in your marriage with somebody of the opposite sex outside your marriage. So what does that look like? As a man, I'm married to Megan. I don't talk to other women that are just my friends about my marriage and intimate things that are going on. Why? Because that would build an emotional connection with that friend, no matter how close we are, no matter how, back in the day we used to do such and such. No, I'm confiding in her now secret things. I'm confiding in her things that I'm not even telling my wife. No. That is a red flag. That's way to flag on the play, because now that other woman is going to be holding on to things, even if she wants to or not, that then can allow me to all of a sudden start to feel, well, wait a minute, this friend understands me more than my wife. She lets me be who I am. And all of a sudden, this emotional affair begins. So I think it's so important to monitor having friendships with the opposite sex. I don't have a problem with it. I have many friends that are of the opposite sex. I have a company that is pretty much all women work at the company. But I'm not engaging in conversations that would be in violation of my marriage. So important. Very, very important. Here's the other thing. When you come into marriage, your friendships with the opposite sex may have to change. It's so important to listen to this. And they don't change because you're not as close to that person, but marriage requires a different commitment. And there are some friendships that they want it to be like it used to be. Well, sorry, you're married now. It doesn't mean you can't be friends, but it does mean that your friendship may have to mold and may have to evolve along with the relationship and with the marriage. It's so important. I know that there's so many couples out there that fight over this issue. This is not an issue of jealousy. This is not even an issue of envy. I believe that the same way you have insurance on your car, you got to have insurance in your relationship and in your marriage. And what does that mean? You got to protect it. So if you're a brother listening to this, if you're a man, women have an intuition about other women that we don't have. There have been plenty of times where Megan says, hey, that woman, she's interested in you. And I'd be like, no. She's like, babe, listen to me. So I would listen, and lo and behold, maybe what I thought was platonic wasn't. So it's important to listen to the women in our lives. And sometimes they're not coming from a place of jealousy or anxiety or frustration. They're coming because they're picking up something that we can't see. Important to really trust when a woman in our life says, hey, she may not say get rid of that woman per se, but that relationship with that other female has to be monitored, and it may have to mold to the relationship. The same thing goes for women in a committed relationship or marriage when it deals with other men. Be very careful about not talking about your marital business with other men outside your marriage. And that doesn't mean, to me, that doesn't matter what man it is. Really important. It's one thing if you and your husband or you and your girlfriend, if talking to women, it's one thing if you and your husband or you and your boyfriend, end up going to get counseling, with another couple. That's cool. But I would discourage any woman to talk to a man outside of their relationship without at least, you got to tell your man saying, hey, we're having some challenges. I need some counsel. Are you okay if I talk to this man about our problems? Once you get the okay, cool. But don't do it in secret. Don't do it in silence. Really, really important. So I really, really wanted to answer this question because, Megan and I, this is something we talk about, and we don't talk to other single, friends about our relationship. And even our married friends, like I'll talk to my brothers, my married brothers, about what's going on. She'll talk to her married sisters, but we're very, very mindful of not allowing people of the opposite sex to have such an insight to our relationship where it begins to hurt the marriage. Very, very important. And also emotional cheating is a real thing, and it happens much easier than any of us would like to admit. Why? Because if we have a need in our relationship or our marriage that isn't getting met, that is a vulnerability. So that means somebody can come that we may, know or may not even not know, can come and actually expose that vulnerability. So it's really important. It goes back to communication. If you're married or in a relationship, talk about what's going on. Express what's happening so you don't find yourself inadvertently getting into an emotional affair. Alan on Facebook, does loneliness in a relationship lead to cheating? Yes, Alan. Yes, thank you for asking this question. Loneliness in a marriage or relationship absolutely can lead to cheating. Why? Because when you don't feel valued in your own relationship, when you don't feel valued in your marriage, and you feel like even though you're together, you're by yourself, that feeling sometimes is worse than feeling alone by yourself. So when we're single and we're alone, that's one thing. But when you're alone inside a relationship or a marriage, it can feel devastating. And that can produce the feeling that maybe something outside the marriage would make you feel better. But here's what I believe. Whenever we look outside the marriage or the relationship, we're looking outside for what we should be looking for inside. There's nothing outside our marriage in another person or outside a relationship with another person that can fix what's going wrong in your current relationship or marriage. So important to realize this. And here's something I'm going to say. I got to give another commercial break, and I'm going to come right back to our regularly scheduled program. I'm going to answer one more question, and then y'all have to tune in next time to get the second part of this conversation, because I want to end it with what we can do to stop men from cheating and what men can do to get control of this issue. There are, for men out there, there are certain women that know that we have an issue with lust, and they prey on it. They seek it out. They exploit it. This is why it's so important to know what's going on, acknowledge it, so you can safeguard yourself from some women that may be trying to come into your life that don't mean you any good. So important. And for women, please hear me, please. It is so important to know that you gotta give the man you're dating or you're considering dating time to reveal himself. Because just because in week one you think he's one person, who he really is may not get revealed until week 10. Don't be so quick to say this is the one, or I'm trying to lock this person down. You may not even know who they are. This is why it's important, and one of the reasons why I wrote my book, The Truth About Men, what men and women need to know, is to help you as women also identify if you're dealing with a man who has the dog or the master in control. The dog is lust, the master is love. There are some men that want you to think they're leading with the master, but the truth is they're just a dog hiding. So it's very, very important to give it time for the situation to reveal itself. Okay, this is so important. I gotta ask this question, and then I'm gonna give you some tips, and we'll do it. We'll do a part 2. My boyfriend watches porn, but says he still loves me. Is that true? Yes, absolutely. This is a hard truth. Your boyfriend, I don't know who asked that question. I think it came from Facebook. Your boyfriend could absolutely watch porn and still love you. Why? Because this lust that's in him, the lust that he is feeding by watching pornography, is not necessarily dependent on his love for you. He may absolutely love you, but he's struggling and he doesn't have the tools and tips on how to master the dog within so that he no longer feeds it using pornography. So important. So first of all, if he expressed this to you, I would take that as a positive sign. He's being honest with you. The second thing I would say is, if you're dealing with that, I would ask him, well, babe, tell me the truth. And this may sound crazy, a crazy question. What does that service in you? Why do you do that? How long have you been doing that? How long has it been a habit? Babe, I think we should we get help? Can we talk to somebody about this? Because pornography is addictive. And there's a whole chapter in the book that I devote, not a whole chapter, excuse me, a section that I deal with pornography in this book. Why? Because it's prevalent. The movie business is, on an annual basis, probably $11 billion business. From my research, the pornography business is a $91 billion business. So more men struggle with pornography than anybody knows. And if you guys are more interested in this subject, maybe I'll do a truth talk on it. So for that woman that asked the question, he absolutely can still love you. However, I would work with him to get help around this issue. Because if he is addicted to pornography, it absolutely is a liability for your relationship and can completely be destructive and detrimental over time. Okay, we could talk about this all night. I'm mindful of your time. I'm so grateful. So here's what we can do in order to curb our appetite, master the dog. Sorry, I had one other thought. Sorry. I think the next talk I want to bring up as it relates to cheating is, should you go back to someone after they cheated on you? What are the rules? What are the thoughts about dealing with somebody that has cheated on you that you love? Should you go back? Should you go back? Maybe we should talk about that in our next truth talk. I think it's really, really important. So here's what we can do. Do I believe that we can cheat proof a relationship or a marriage? When both the man and the woman make a committee of one to work on their issues, to be honest about what's going on, to converse with one another, to work with one another, is it possible to have it to cheat proof your marriage or relationship? It is, but it takes work and it takes commitment. So, men, if you're watching this, what can we do? First of all, we have to acknowledge that we have this lust in us. Too often, especially in the community of faith. Now, listen, I grew up in the church my whole life. The only thing that people would say about lust is, oh, it's wrong. But nobody would ever say, well, what do you do when you get an urge? How do you handle that? So it's so important if you're a man watching this to know the fact that you have lust and the fact that you have impure thoughts and things in you that you don't want to do. Don't feel guilty and don't stop shaming yourself. Because trust me, I've been there, right? When these thoughts start coming and I'm like, well, why? What's wrong with me? God, I don't understand. I start to get mad. I start to get angry. And there was a whole lot of time I was guilty and just shame. And I just had to say, okay, Lord, let me at least acknowledge the thing that I don't want to acknowledge, that I got lust. I do. I got a dog in me. I do. Okay. First thing first is accepting it. The second thing is like, okay, now that I've accepted that, now I have to put myself in a process in order to not allow it to run my life. And part of it comes with making a choice. The choice is who I want to be. Do I ultimately want to be somebody who produces pain in somebody else's life because I've allowed the lust instead of the love to run my life? Or do I want to be somebody that allows that love to be in control? So I had to decide, do I want to be the master or the dog? And I decided I want to be the master. So that decision every day helps me then do this. So the first thing is accept. The second thing is decide. You got to decide who you want to be and what you want to do in life. What do you want your legacy to be? And the third thing is if I want to be the man I was created to be, I then have to put myself in a daily process to not allow this dog in me to leave me sniffing outside my marriage or relationship and finding comfort in other women, in other situations that I know would be detrimental. I have to commit myself to the process. Part of that process is reading the word. Part of that process is prayer. Part of that process is having other men you can talk with. Part of that process is avoiding environments where it's hard to not succumb to temptation. This is why, now listen, I might say something unpopular, but this is why I think it's important that we look at this whole strip club culture, because it's so ingrained in what men do, and so often we accept it. But here's what's honest. The strip club culture can create an environment where lust just thrives and it's fed, versus us as men saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that, because what's going to happen is it's going to turn me into something I don't want to be. Look, I got to also talk about the music. Listen, I'm a big fan of hip hop. I love hip hop. I listen to hip hop. But we also have to recognize that the music also does a lot to foster some of this negativity that we're seeing in the behavior played out in our culture. Because the music is sometimes elevating the lust, and the music is celebrating the lust. And I'm here to tell you, as a man, if you really want to leave a legacy and live the life that's going to create more peace, it comes from mastering this dog, from putting love in control of lust, and being aware of environments that may make it harder for you to keep the commitment of who it is that you want to be. The other thing I would say is that none of this is easy. It can be done, but at the end of the day, we have to make the decision. And here's a hard truth for women. There's nothing that you can do that can make a man do his work. Every man has to commit to doing their work. Now, you can create an environment where that might help motivate a man to do his work. But it's so important that we as men take on the challenge and say, you know what? I don't want to cheat. What about starting there? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. And I'm going to put myself in an environment where I safeguard it. I'm going to watch how I move. I'm going to watch my conversations. Even now, we're on Instagram and Facebook. This is one of the platforms where lust gets active quick. You could be just going through your day. You're not even thinking about nothing. Bam, you scroll on something and your mind is gone. Y'all ain't got to say amen because I know I'm talking to you. All right. I see some of the hearts. I see you. So why do men cheat? Because the dog is in control. Lust is running rampant. What can we do about it? We have to put the master in control of the dog. We have to put love in control of lust, love of self, love of God, love of the woman in our life, love of our family. Love is sacrificial. Lust is selfish. When we put sacrifice in place of selfishness, we position ourselves to be able to master what others say is impossible. Oh, man, I wish we had more time to talk about this. I wish we had more time for more questions. I've seen all the questions, and also what we'll do is we'll do some blog posts. If you could, go on to DeVonFranklin.com, sign up for my mentor mail, and I'll be able to answer a whole lot more questions for you. If you're interested in pre-ordering The Truth About Men, if you've enjoyed this conversation, what men and women need to know, right now, you can go to DeVonFranklin.com/the truth. You can also go to Amazon.com, BNN.com, anywhere books are sold. You can pre-order this right now. My mission is I believe we can change the culture. I know it sounds crazy because we as men, we don't like to do our work. I don't like looking in the mirror to do my work, but I know I got to do it. So I wrote this book to start a movement. It's time, my brothers. We got to do our work. And women, you got to know what's going on every step of the way. I no longer want you to be in the dark about a man's intentions. I no longer want you to be on the receiving end of manipulation. I no longer want you to be on the receiving end of humiliation. I no longer want you to be on the receiving end of a man who has no intention for you. So I wrote this book to give you information on how to better navigate your situation with men so that you can become even more successful in your dealings. So you can go to DeVonFranklin.com/the truth or Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble and all that good stuff. So tune in next week. We're going to be back for Truth Talk at 6 p.m. Y'all got to stay posted. I'll let you know what the topic's going to be. We are going to do a part 2 on why men cheat and what men need to do and what we need to do about it. Now, it's possible I may not do that next week. I'm going to see what God says. I'm going to check in with the master, the real master, and then I'll let y'all know. God bless you. I'm praying for your success. As a matter of fact, let me pray with you before we leave. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray that you would be with every single person watching now. I pray, dear God, that you would give them more peace around this issue of relationships. I pray, dear God, that any man watching that is cheating on his girlfriend or wife or considering cheating on his girlfriend or wife, that you would stop him cold in his tracks. If there's any woman right now listening that is cheating with a man who has a girlfriend or a wife, I pray that you would stop her in her tracks. I pray right now that anyone listening would know you can get the victory over lust. You can master this thing that seems unmasterable. Yes, I made that up. I'm praying, dear God, right now that there would be peace, that there would be clarity. And I'm also praying that as we have these conversations, it would build community. You said in your word that the truth would set us free. So we're seeking for truth. And most of all, we're seeking for you. Bless everyone listening. Bless the rest of their work week. Bless their home life. Bless their finances in a major way. In the name of Jesus, I pray, amen. Thank you all. God bless you. Love you.